Juan, it seemed as though you were giving a pep rally to the veterans here. They're on the third day of this 7-day march, and you had your own personal experience that you could share with them.
Of course, I mean that was the intent here to come here. One of my intentions is to be here, and then of course help them and supporting them by being on the march tomorrow or the day after. But yeah, we did this in 1985, November. We arrived in San Antonio on the 9th, and we went ahead and organized ourselves at that time in the valley at Pan American University, where all my friends had attended school at. And we ran our first day. Our first day we ran from Edinburg. We left at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we ran to Falfurrias, Texas, and stayed at the VFW post. The next 2 days were short legs, because we ran from Fal to Alice. It's only about 30 miles or so, and then we went from Alice to Three Rivers. And then the last day, the fourth day, we ran all the way into San Antonio. And it was, we were huffing and puffing, but we did it. I mean, we had the way we did it is some people were committed to saying, I'm going to run, let's say, 4 miles today, and they would break it in, 1, 1, 1, and 1, or 2 and 2, or 3 and 1, or 4 miles in one shot. And we had a schedule going, and they would plug in the number of miles. Personally, I ran 28 miles that time between the 4 days, and the one day I had to get out of there and go back to work, because I was working with the government at that time. But I came in that afternoon and still ran a couple of miles. And we went to San Antonio, and we went in there. We went in a formation, calling cadence all the way down to the Alamo, and people were just shouting and really motivated them. On the last day, right at the end, I mean, we were already very tired, but we ran the last 3 miles as a group. And that didn't count out of those 28. Nobody counted that. We ran about 3 miles, and we were counting since I have been an instructor, a drill instructor, and did some drill, we were doing a little cadence that you hear in the military, and you could hear them a long ways out. And so people joined our formation and went in all the way to the Alamo.
And how many were on that run? How many of
we probably ended up with about, I would say, close to 200 and some people.
Running.
And some people would run half a mile and then they had to leave, or some people ran. There was one individual that ran 26 miles in one shot, which was the first day. That's why we ran all the way to Falfurrias. I can't remember his name right now. But we had an experience. In fact, the run at that time was known, the last patrol, a journey to remember. And we had our own T-shirts, and it was, to say the least, it was just like we bonded, those people from then, and some of them went back to Vietnam and they never came back. By that, mentally, they were so inspired by this, and then they're still up there, thinking they're in Vietnam, but it brought them out to reality. The reality was that we could bond, and that there was people here that welcomed us in our country, and most of those people were our own families, our own veterans organizations, and our own brotherhood.
What was the purpose of that run?
That particular run was to bring an awareness of the POW MIA issue, but we were also fighting the hospital, and we made some comments throughout the time that we were there that we were being left out in South Texas, that our hospital was not being, our medical needs were not being addressed properly. And so
we're 24 years later.
24 years later, or almost 23 and a half years later, they're still fighting the hospital. And
does it make you sad that it's 23 years later, after all that inspiring publicity you got for the cause, and there was a march 4 years ago as well, we're still basically at
step one, and I think it's really a shame. It's really a shame that is happening when you have the wealth of this state in particular would rank probably 5th or 7th in the world as far as the state economy. And of course the Veterans Administration would rather build a hospital somewhere else where the population of veterans is very small. But politically, I think it's more correct for them to. So they don't look at the needs of South Texas. But yet when it comes to defending our country, the numbers are there. Like right now, just in the Rio Grande Valley, the four-county area, Willacy, Cameron, Hidalgo, and Star. Actually, nobody from Star has gotten killed, but I know that Cameron, Hidalgo, and Willacy had taken a big hit. I know Willacy had lost three young men, and there's 30 of them in this war on terror.
What do you put it down to? Why do you think the VA has just not been responsive, the federal government has not been responsive to South Texas?
Well, I think that the VA will always have an excuse of some sort. And figures can be manipulated around any way you want to. Like I've mentioned, the commission that came over a couple of years ago and did a study, they said, well, there's only so many veterans, but they only included a four-county area. That's not South Texas. That is not true South Texas. They didn't address the fact that for example, that other counties would be serviced by the VA being in the valley or South Texas. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the valley. It could be somewhere else, the hospital, and it would take a little bit of pressure off the hospital in San Antonio. In fact, I'll give you an example. My brother-in-law, who lives in Far, was sent by the VA out of McAllen to come and see a doctor in Corpus. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the South Texas area is just too big to be ignored. And so I think it has to do in the past with politics, that we're a democratic country, area, and Republicans were in control. So we'll see what the Obama administration is going to do. I hope that they are here to our needs. And secondly, I think they keep looking at the fact that we have always, since we have never gotten a hospital, we just keep trying and trying, and we don't give up hope. And they'll just say, we'll throw a little crumb there, and we'll promise this or promise that, and open up a new clinic for this or that, and don't open a full-fledged hospital. And I don't know what their problems are, and I do know that working for the government, the people that are leading the VA will only be doing what they're told by higher management. Because I work for the government, and they won't go outside the parameters of what they're told to do. So this has to do with something that goes all the way up to Washington. And I hope the President of the United States realizes that we have the need for a hospital in South Texas, because it's not only about the Rio Grande Valley. There's communities here in South Texas that veterans from World War II have to travel in a wheelchair, be placed in a wheelchair in a vehicle, and travel all the way to San Antonio to go see a medical doctor for something that's not provided in South Texas. And the VA is going to say, well, we have all these things available already. Fine. If that is the case, then just open a hospital.